when I was growing up, our relationships were real from the get-go because they were based on in-person interactions. Okay? And if you like somebody, you knew that you really liked them because you liked them in person. If you couldn't stand somebody, you knew that you couldn't stand them because you couldn't stand them in person. The more authentic you can be, the more valuable you will be. We live in a world now where it seems as though we are becoming more connected but more distant. And I believe that what we're losing is a bit of authenticity. And this has been a long time coming. So where we're at now is not something that just happened all of a sudden. It's been in the making for a long time. I want to discuss this now because authenticity can have a huge impact, a huge positive impact on your life if you know how to tap into it and if you know how to really use it the way it's supposed to be used so that you get the best results out of your life. Now, with all that said, I just want to remind you that I am Mark Johnson, the founder of Bounce Pep, bringing you ideas for a fit and flourishing future. And I am also the youngest son of Bill Johnson. Now, with that said, hope that you subscribe if you are not subscribed. If you are already subscribed, thank you very much. So, again, we're going to be talking about authenticity here. And I'm just going to start out with a little bit of history lesson. So, as you know, we're now in the internet age and we're developing artificial intelligence, and we've really come a long way in the past couple of hundred years. But, it all started really with the telegraph. And the first viable telegraph really came along in 1816. And so that was kind of the first time where one person in one location could send a message. And at that time, it was just a simple message, but you could send a message across, a few miles or several miles and have someone else on the other end receive that message. And you didn't have to be in physical contact to communicate. So that's where that started. Now, later on down the line, of course, the telephone came. That was around the 1870s or so. And of course, that just added a whole new dimension because now you had two people who were on separate sides of the line, of course, and they were able to basically converse back and forth directly, and they were able to actually hear each other's voices. So that's a whole nother level, right? Now, again, remember, this is all happening remotely. And at that time, this is a huge deal. Nothing existed like it before then. Huge deal at the time, okay? This was just a revolutionary technology at that time. Now, eventually you had audio transmissions by radio as well. That was in about 1900 or so when that started. And if you just fast forward, television came along, then you had satellites, you had computing, that led to the internet, and yada, yada, yada. And at each stage, we were able to improve our ability to communicate remotely without physically coming in contact with one another, right? And it was effective, it was efficient, it got the job done. But it still removed a bit of that interpersonal component that you would have from a real life face-to-face interaction, like in person. There was something that, just wasn't the same. Even with television, where you could get a person on the screen and you could see all of their gestures and everything. And, it still wasn't the same as if you could have that person in front of you right there where you could reach out and touch them, make direct eye contact with them, pick up on their energy in person. It just was a different experience. And then, of course, with the internet, eventually you had social media that came along in I want to say around 2003 or so. Skype came along and the masses started using video conferencing. Of course, it existed before that, but what Skype did was it really made it available for the masses. And of course, after that, it just took off. And so people eventually got accustomed to being able to connect with each other remotely with video, with audio, and have a discussion, have a meeting, whatever it is. People got used to this idea that they could meet up and get things done without actually physically meeting up. And I'm going to tell you something. I think that overall it's a net positive because people were still doing the the creating. They were still coming up with the information themselves, okay? And they were simply presenting it remotely. But we as human beings were still creating everything, right? So the content was still created by humans. Now, the weird thing that's happening now is with all of this AI, what you have is you have a new technology where we don't actually have to create things. We can kind of leave it up to the AI. The AI will generate content. But the problem with that is it lacks authenticity, which is what I started talking about at the beginning. And we're transitioning into this world now where people are going to start tapping into the power of AI. And a lot of people seem to be convinced that it's a great thing and it's going to be for the betterment of humanity. But what I see is a loss of authenticity. Now, remember, before AI, it wasn't that things weren't authentic. It's just that things were remote. Human beings were still connecting. We were still creating. Okay. And so there was still a level of authenticity because it was coming from human beings directly, from person to person, even if the communication was happening remotely. But now with this artificial intelligence craze, now humans don't even have to create anything. People believe that they can just leave everything to AI to basically do the thinking and the generation of ideas and creation and everything. And what I say, with that comes a loss of authenticity. And I want you to understand something very, very important about authenticity. Mark Johnson here. I'm excited to invite you to join Bounce Pep's 3-day VIP focus and follow through retreat here in Kyoto, Japan. Your time is the most valuable asset that you have, and you can't waste it. So I want you to come join me. I'm going to work with you personally. We're going to work on what your true purpose should be at this point in your life so that you can focus in on it and you can follow through and make progress. You're going to be treated like a true VIP. You're going to have 2 days of the actual program where we do a bit of work, and then we're going to have 1 day where you go on a curated tour through the legendary city of Kyoto, Japan. If you've never been to Japan, this is your chance. Authenticity, creativity, ideas that come out of the brain of an actual person is always going to be more valuable. People are always going to view it as more valuable. And this is the world that I see us transitioning into, is that the more authentic you can be, the more valuable you will be. Because so many people are going to be trying to use AI to do things that they really should be doing themselves. But they're going to be trying to use AI to do it. And a lot of the generation of ideas and the content is going to become homogenized. It's going to become very obvious that things are being produced by artificial intelligence. And people are going to be turned off by this. I already, for instance, right now, just me personally, if I know that something that I'm reading or something that I'm looking at, if I know that it was produced or generated by artificial intelligence, I'm automatically less interested, and I'm not the only one. I automatically lose interest. If I know that some music was generated by I pretty much automatically don't really want to hear it. I want to hear authentic music. I want to read authentic content that was basically thought up by humans. That's what I'm interested in. And I think a lot of other people are too. And what's going to happen is anything that has an air of authenticity, not only an air, but is actually authentic, something authentically generated by the mind of a human being, is going to become more and more valuable in the future. It's pretty much inevitable, okay? Because inauthenticity is going to be commoditized, right? It's going to be commoditized. It's going to be too easy to create something inauthentic, right? And, what's going to happen is in your, how do I put this? If you run a business, for instance, what you're going to find out is that authenticity is going to be more valuable for your business. If you have customers are going to be willing to pay you more for authenticity than they will for something that is artificially produced. It's pretty much guaranteed because humans value authenticity. We understand that it has inherent value. Okay. It's kind of like when you see someone with a really impressive build and you know that they're going to work out to build that body, you know that they're building that body brick by brick every day. It's a lot more impressive because you know that. You understand the authenticity, the authentic effort that got them to that point, right? Now, I'm not trying to pick on people who have cosmetic surgeries, but you're never going to view someone who looks the way that they do through cosmetic surgery the same way. You're just not. You're not going to have the same kind of respect for the effort and the dedication that it took to get there because it really didn't take any. Anybody with a little bit of money can just order up some cosmetic surgery and alter their appearance. But when you see someone with a really impressive build who's in the gym, getting it done and building that up over time, the impression is totally different. And you really are more likely to be impressed because you understand the authentic effort that went into that. So authenticity. And this plays out in a lot of ways in our lives. This idea of authenticity and the value of authenticity. I listen to music now. You probably listen to music now too. Maybe if you're still in your 20s and you have not heard a lot of music pre 1990, for instance, you may not realize that the quality of music has really suffered over the past several decades. And it's because we've lost some authenticity. What happened with the music was it really started with hip hop, which hip hop started with good intentions. But what happened was in time, the executives at the big record companies began to understand that they could create records without having real musicians playing instruments. They could basically have somebody on a synthesizer and a drum machine just create something very basic, for lack of a better word, but it has a beat. It has a little a groove that they can loop over and over again. Okay. And you don't have to pay for an orchestra. You don't have to pay for a wind section. You don't have to pay. Like all of these things that used to really take an investment, of money, to corral those resources, get them in a studio together to make excellent quality music. The executives realize we don't have to do this. We can actually create a much simpler, much cheaper product and still make a bunch of money, right? Now, at the same time, of course, artists have been making less money, right? Artists can't sell CDs and get rich. It's just that world doesn't exist anymore. So what happens is because people value authenticity, an artist now must go live in front of the people authentically and get them at a concert, get their audience at a concert and play live. And this is what the audience is willing to pay a lot of money for. You have people that will pay thousands and thousands of dollars to get the best tickets at a concert. But they won't pay anything to purchase the actual album, right? Because the album is available artificially through streaming and everything else, pretty much at no cost, right? And so it's really devalued because it doesn't have that genuine quality anymore. The only way you can get that genuine quality now is to go to concert, see the actual band, see the actual orchestra, see the actual people playing the instrument, see the vocalist actually, singing a song. This is where the value is now, and this is what people are willing to pay for, is that authenticity. So this goes for your relationships. This goes for your wealth. If you're in business, like, you need to hear this. Your ability to produce a real experience, your ability to have real failures, to gain real insights, to offer real solutions, right? This is going to earn you real results. And all of this leads to wisdom, okay? And all of that is genuine value. That provides genuine value to your customers, okay? If you are a consumer, you're going to be willing to pay more for that kind of thing, that kind of that personal human touch, especially if it's in person. In person, this is going to become much more valuable in the future. And I want you guys to hear me on this, because we're in this world now where everybody's trying to automate everything, because a lot of times it's faster and it's cheaper to do so. But understand that you're losing. I know that the argument is that you gain value that way, but the reality is that people are always going to be willing to pay more for real in-person human interaction. People are always going to be willing to pay more for this. If you go on an ultra luxury cruise, okay, and if you've ever been on one, basically it's a cruise where you pay one price and everything's included. There's nothing added once you get on the ship. Everything is included in that price. So whatever you want, you can have it as much as you want anytime. Nobody's going to charge you anything. Nobody's going to be asking you for tips. None of that. Everything's included. You get a butler. The butler is waiting on you pretty much hand and foot, and you're paying for that in-person experience, that attention to detail that only a kind of person-to-person interaction can give you, right? This is not remote interaction. This is person-to-person. These are the types of experiences that people are willing to pay top dollar for. People are not going to pay top dollar, and you won't either, for an app. You're just not going to do it. They're not going to do it, and you're not going to do it. You're not going to pay. You're not going to spend an incredible amount of your hard-earned money to purchase an app. No, you're going to spend big money for real human interactions in person, face-to-face, live. This is where the world is going. And I want you to understand this, because this also works for your relationships. It's not only about your wealth and making money. Your relationships, I know that social media is the big thing right now. I get it. But I also come from a time long before social media was ever invented. And, I can tell you that when I was growing up, our relationships were real from the get-go, because they were based on in-person interactions. Okay? And if you like somebody, you knew that you really liked them because you liked them in person. If you couldn't stand somebody, you knew that you couldn't stand them because you couldn't stand them in person. All of this was happening in person. You could pick up on people's body language. You could pick up on how they really felt about what they were saying and what they were hearing, because, of course, body language sometimes reveals that what people are saying is not necessarily what they're feeling. Okay? And those kind of cues in this technological world that we live in now, where everything is remote, you can actually lose some of those cues, right? And so if you want to build strong relationships, more genuine, more authentic relationships, you've got to get in the room with people. You've got to get with them physically, get together face to face. This is how you build a real relationship. I video conferencing and Zoom and all this stuff is great. It has its place. But if you want to build real relationships where you build real rapport, authenticity, okay, you've got to actually Get together in person with people. Okay. Some of you are working a job and maybe you're doing a lot of remote work. And so you're not going into the office very much. Well, I got news for you. This is just the way it's going to be. Companies are going to value they're basically going to offer more opportunities to the people who are willing to come into the office and work in person. Why? Because there's an authenticity to the interactions. It's like the person is there. You can see what they're doing. Okay. You can see the results that they're getting. You can see that it's genuine, whether it's poor results or bad results or whatever, there's an authenticity to it. Okay. When someone is working remotely, you lose that. Okay. You just lose that. And so what happens is the person who is working remotely like that, a lot of times is going to be a bit behind the ball in terms of maybe if you're looking for promotions to move up the corporate ladder or something like that, you're going to be really facing headwinds compared to somebody who's going into the office every day. It's just going to be the reality of the situation, okay? Because authenticity, and I'm talking about in-person interactions when I say that, is inherently more valuable. All right, so that is my message for you today. All right, I just want you to think about how you can build more authenticity into your relationships. Think about how you can build more authenticity into your business. Don't get so carried away with all this technology and this remote this and remote that and artificial intelligence this and artificial intelligence that you forget that people value authentic in-person interactions more than anything else. Okay. And the same thing for you. If you're learning something, okay, you're going to learn something much better if you're learning in person, if you're on site, right? You're in front of people learning directly. You can get instant feedback, okay? You can feed off energy. Energy travels back and forth, right? So you get that feedback. You get that personal attention, right? You can't. There are certain things you can't do remotely. There are certain things that you can't leave up to artificial intelligence. There are certain things you actually have to do in person. You have to do them yourself in order for them to be authentic and to get those real results. So that's my question, or that's not my question. That that was my little soliloquy, and I hope that you enjoyed that. I hope that you take something from this and just apply it in your life. Okay. With that said, I'm going to sign out here. Talk to you next time.